Welcome back to another segment of the City Street Financial Report training videos. In this video, we're going to look at how to put in bonds and loans on your City Street Finance Report. We begin by navigating to the Bonds and Loans tab at the top of your report. Any bond or loan that has an outstanding principal balance at the end of the year will be moved forward to this next report for the next year. All you will need to do at that point is update the principal and interest payments that you made during the fiscal year. You'll need to go in. To do that, you click Edit, and you'll need to put in what you paid for this fiscal year. I paid $50,000, and I paid $5,000 in interest, and I paid $50,000 in the bonding fee. If these do not match up, when I hit save and I go back to the expenses page and I look down here at the bottom, they would still be in orange. Because they're all the same, they don't show up as orange anymore. The tricky ones get to be the bonds that are combination bonds, where not all of the bond amount, the original bond amount, if that entire original amount wasn't just street related, that's where we get into some tricky stuff. So we're going to put in a new one. It lets you put in a description. You can put in absolutely anything that you want to put in. We're going to put in Mountain Street because I'm looking at my Mountain Dew can. We are going to say it's new for this year. Most often, these are general obligation bonds. Sometimes, obviously, you have special assessments or a short-term note, but most often, street related, they're general obligations. Debt purpose. This is a list that comes off of the federal report. I realized that I could do a project and hit almost all of these in one project. You just need to pick the piece of the project that's the most. So if it's primarily a street improvement, sure, it might have curb and gutter, it might have sidewalk, it might have street lighting, but basically overall it's a big street improvement project. Then go ahead and pick it as that. Honestly, what I see the most is street improvements and paving and construction. Those are the two most common. The issue date, you can either put it in purely as a date by numbers, or you can pull up the calendar and navigate back into the correct fiscal year. The original issue amount, I'm going to put this one in as $1 million. It makes it easy for you to see what it's doing. Two things happen currently, and you will need my help to put these in. If when you bond for that $1 million, the bank automatically takes their own fees out so that really you only received $950,000 instead of $1 million, then we have to do an adjustment to take that $50,000 out. The other thing that's been happening a lot is we're bonding for $1 million, but we're receiving more than that because we got a premium. And so you're only going to repay that $1 million, but maybe you actually got $20,000 extra dollars. So we have $1,020,000 to go spend. If you have to put in, let me know. I will put it in for you. I'm going to leave those out for right now. This is the amount related to your street project. This is not a percent. If I put in 100, the form will say, oh, $100 out of that 1 million is what you spent on a street. And then you end up with some really weird numbers. So out of that 1 million, maybe it's $750,000 for the street. The other $250,000 was for something else. It is going to automatically do the calculation to figure out the percent, and then it's going to take the percent times the principal paid, the interest paid, and the fees paid to only show that 75% that was street dollars on the expense page. If I put that in, I'm going to give it a year due. And I'm going to say I paid $100,000, a little bit unusual to have a principal paid in the same year that I took the bond out. But just so that you guys can see what it does, I will do it. And I'm going to hit save. I'm going to real quick take that other one out so that you can't see it anymore. Don't delete your bonds. They're not much fun to put back in. That "are you sure" is to stop you from accidentally deleting something you shouldn't have. So when we go back to the expense page, remember I paid $100,000. It's only looking for $75,000 because that's the 75% of the 100 million that's related to streets. That is why some of this gets to be a little bit complicated, especially in cities that have multiple bonds that have multiple different things in each bond. So this orange total over here is what it's looking for that is street related. If you are levying for all of your dollars for bonds, then you don't even have to go through and do the calculation if you don't want to work all of the pencil work. It's looking for 75,000. You know those are all property tax dollars. You can go ahead and put them in. Oops. You can put in until they match up. When you hit save, we're going to go to the revenues page. And we're going to look at the revenues for levied on property. And it automatically pulled from that last page that 75,825. If I put in other payments, it's going to reduce that. But it's just looking for those street related dollars. And that's where the bonds get hard. So this is the same process as the old form for bonds. You need to put in a loan if you never made a payment last year. Here's why. We received that money during the year. So we have that revenue that came in. So even I'll go back and take the payments out for that year. I will go in and tell it, nope, $0, $0, $0. No payments made, but I received $1 million. So on the revenue page, after I go and put in a new bond, I need to go back to my revenue page, and down under proceeds for debt, it's going to say, hey, you got $1 million bond and you told me that 750,000 of it was for a street project. Where does it go? Does it go into capital projects? Does it go into the general fund? Does it go into road use? Where are you going to spend it from? So you need to go in and tell it that you have money to spend on a project. If you don't put it in, you wouldn't have the revenue available to go spend on your project. So you definitely want to put it in, even if you haven't made payments yet. Even if you haven't spent it yet, you're going to need that balance to be able to make payments on things in the future. That wraps up the bonds and loans segment. If you have a question, please don't hesitate to contact me. The combination bonds can be a little tricky, both on the revenue side and the expense side, when the report form, so the revenue and the expense tabs, are only looking for those street related dollars instead of that entire amount. So sometimes that can be tricky. Be sure that what you're putting in is really just street dollars. So if you have expenses that are from a combination bond and you're showing just the expense amount related to streets, that the revenue that you're also entering to cover those payments is also only the street portion and not the entire amount that you have levied for debt service. If you have questions, please give me a call or send me email. I would be happy to help you with your bonds and loans.